Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Premier League Show, brought to you by us idiots here at American Scouser TV. I am joined today, as I always am, by my good friend and co-host, the Polish Prince, Mr. ASTV Tuzi himself. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well, thank you. Kind of weirdly excited, maybe not weirdly excited, but pretty excited to just finally get the season done with. At some point, the fantasy is fun, the fantasy is enjoyable, the banter is good, but it's getting to the point where I'm kind of feeling like Klopp. I'm just a bit burnt out, and I'm just ready to be done. So this is our second to last show of the year, I think. So it's gonna be hopefully it's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, we're going to take a look here. I don't want to overextend anything. I'm not sure that we can do fun. We've been through 30 plus weeks of this, and I'm not sure this thing is very fun. But obviously, we'll start like we always do. We start with really just looking at the American Scouser Cup. And Klops and Roberts had a great week, 105 points.
Huge.
Outstanding, big move, all the way up to top 20,000 of the world. Congratulations to them. Johnny Mac Reds must have had a red arrow there and dropped a little bit overall in the rank, down to the top 19,000, but still nothing to sneeze at. And then we have two more players in the almost just inside the top 25,000. So top four, inside the top 25,000. What an impressive top of the leaderboard we have here in the American Scouser Cup.
And let's not gloss over the fact that we've got two Galavins in the top eight.
We do. We both were two of the ones who didn't fare as well. Had a rough week, both of us, but we'll see how it goes. I obviously, I missed the last few weeks. I was in Chicago last Thursday night. Actually, this time last Thursday, I was getting ready to walk into Second City to see a very, very funny comedy show. It was a good time. Enjoyed myself very much, by the way, in your city. Could see myself coming back maybe multiple times because there was a lot to do. I also think that I didn't come at the most opportune time. The people that planned this trip wanted people to come somewhere central. We maybe should have went central on the south part of the country, where the weather would have been a little warmer. Because let me
Yeah.
tell you, Thursday was beautiful on the architecture tour. Wednesday was not as beautiful at the Cubs game. And man, when it's windy at a Cubs game,
Brutal.
does baseball really suck? And I
It,
mean, Tamuchin would tell you it always sucks, even in like a beautiful 80-degree afternoon. It is brutal when it is windy and cold and cold. But we'll talk about my team, a little later when we look at my team, kind of my regrets. I'm very happy where I am. I think it was 12 weeks ago. I think I looked the other day, I was outside the top million. So I've made some real moves and I made strategic moves in my chips. It's very hard that you get 145 points in a week and you have regrets, unless you play a bench boost and three guys on your team don't play and get you zero. And you still have a huge green arrow. So imagine what would have happened if I had guys on my bench that actually played during my bench boost. But we'll see. I still think that the other Galavin will finish above me in this table when it's all said and done. But let's take a look at last week's overall best side. We're talking here about the highest score of the week possible that you could have had, 149 points. It's a little jaded, obviously, because there's four Chelsea players on the screen, and we know that wouldn't be allowed. So ruling out Trevor Chalobah, because I don't know that he was owned by anyone of any importance in this game. Any of these players in your side, any of these players thorns in your side for not picking up?
uh oh, sorry. I don't know if you heard that. That's pretty big thunder there. I don't know if that came across, but yeah.
It was a
Hopefully,
pretty big piece of thunder.
hopefully my power doesn't go out because maybe Brian Shelton can attest to this. I might be in a nice urban area, but once the weather gets a little weird, so does my internet. But anyway, Bukayo Saka is the only player on that list that I have on my team, and Isak is the only player that I tell myself every week that I wish I had, and I don't do anything about it. And every week I tell myself, well, it's too late to get on that train, right? Because he's not going to score again. And every week he goes, hey, look at me, I'm scoring again. So unfortunately, for me, I wish I would have had Isak. I have Jasko Gvardiol as well. I will say that's probably been my best pickup in terms of somewhat of a differential. I know he's owned by, I think it's not a ton of people, but it still feels pretty good to have a 15 return from a defender, especially a defender.
He jinxed himself. The internet has frozen. While we wait for Matoush to come back, I think what he was saying is it's great to have a 15-point return from a defender on a team like City, and especially one that's not owned by a bunch of players. He has been a beast of a player over the last 3 game weeks. Pretty sure he has actually brought, I think, somewhere around 33 or 34 points over 3 game weeks in a row. And this is a guy who came in with a whole bunch of fanfare and really fell off overall, I think, out of favor. So let's move on here and take a look at a graphic I found that I thought was really interesting. This one speaks to the clean sheet odds overall for this upcoming game week. And I think that it makes a lot of sense when you start talking about clean sheets to identify whether or not the defense or the attack are the teams that you are targeting. And I think when you have to look at some of these teams, you have to also understand that it isn't just what's happening in that match. It's also a lot of times who the referee is, what grounds are they playing on, what are the team on the other side playing for? Will they be diving in last-ditch tackles? Will they be looking to take a penalty? Will they be willing to play for a 0-0 draw to secure a much-needed point if they're, say, a Luton Town or Burnley? Burnley probably needs wins. I think Luton and Forest are still looking at overall draws as big, huge, crucial points. I think everybody else is pretty much safe at this point from relegation. But I think at this time of the year, you have to start looking at those key factors. Obviously, you also look at the opponent and who's playing home and away and what their recent form is. I don't love how Tottenham's coming in. I would never look at Liverpool and think that we have a chance to keep a clean sheet. So I think there's going to be goals in that match, so I would probably stay away. I think when you look at Newcastle's fixtures, you look at United's fixtures down the stretch, you start to see opportunities for potential clean sheets. If we look at the transfers that are coming in and out right now, we have a couple different trends happening. Obviously, on the incoming side, we've already talked about Isak and his importance to the overall attack at Newcastle. You also see coming in on this list in the 5th position is Anthony Gordon. His attacking returns, especially at home, have been exceptional this season and have really benefited the managers here in FPL that have backed him for a long term. And then with no doubt, with 4 fixtures remaining in the final 3 game weeks, Kevin De Bruyne, Gvardiol, who we've also talked about as a potential differential, and Haaland, who I just have to imagine this is a bunch of people who got off Haaland during the period in which he was injured and or slumping. These 3 players are the most commonly brought in 3 players right now when it comes to Manchester City assets. And those make a lot of sense to me because all 5 of those players on your screen double in 37, have good fixtures down the stretch, and are playing for something. City for the title and Newcastle for the automatic berth into Europe. Unlike Manchester United, who is really trying to stem off Newcastle United for that final guaranteed European spot, other than their chance to play in the FA Cup final. If we look at the teams going out, right, what players are leaving squads? No surprise that Mohamed Salah and Darwin Nunez and Virgil van Dijk are seeing their exit out the door. A lot of people, probably unfortunately, in some ways, jumped on this wagon and went to the Liverpool assets with their doubled game week. That was great on paper. Of course, they've really spit the bit over the last 3 to 5 match weeks, especially on the fantasy side of things. Not really returning, not giving you any form of defensive presence or solidity. So you get no points out of Virgil van Dijk. You have substitute appearances from Darwin Nunez and Mo Salah in back-to-back matches. And the co-host jumps in, I'm assuming, on Facebook or his phone. It's like a Hollywood script. And there went the power and the internet. So it makes total sense. As we were just basically talking about a big crack of thunder, it takes out all of his internet and we have to do the show. But that's the thing here. The show must go on. So we continue to talk fantasy EPL. You can bring your comments to the chat just like Matoush did, which is greatly appreciated, especially on a night when you're doing a show by yourself. So we talked about how Salah and Darwin and Virgil made a lot of sense. The injury questions around Schär makes a lot of sense. And then Dominic Solanke. And I think Solanke is a little bit of, he's a victim of his own success. The fact that he did as well as he did early in the season, and the fact that their fixtures turn here down the stretch, and he's an easy out or a close out that can get you off of your money to get you close to Isak. It could get you to a differential. It could get you back to Watkins if you just have more faith in Ollie Watkins at this moment. So there's a lot of opportunities there for moving Dominic Solanke. And if you are one of the people who are selling Mo Salah and not buying Kevin De Bruyne, well, maybe you're doing Salah to Foden and you want to try to do Solanke up to Haaland or some other type of multi-tiered move in order to get you to that next level. Here to talk through his team. So unless he's in the chat, we'll just talk through it for him. It looks here like he had himself a pretty blah week. He didn't drop a ton. He wasn't near his safety number. He took the -4, which kind of hurt. Or I'm sorry, he had a substitute appearance in that kept him up to 59 points. He was 6 points off of his overall safety score. He's about 35 points off the top 500,000. I know he'd like to be doing better than that, but at this point, I think he's just looking for multiple green arrows in a row. Obviously, he had subs coming in Darwin and Virgil, so not guys he wanted to start. And it really bit him with Eze and Foden not being able to play. That's a tough one right there, especially when you get the 12 points from Salah and the 15 from Gvardiol. I like the Muniz play up top. I know he was really high on Ivan Toney. It was an absolute backfire in his face. I understand that play because I've had a few of those. But all in all, I question where he's going with this team this week. It'll be interesting to see what he does. If he takes a -4 and he makes a couple moves, whether he's dead-ending into double game week 37, because I believe he still has his bench boost left. So I'd be assuming he'd be playing that in 37. So obviously he's going to get at least one more City asset in. But he has a lot of players on this screen that are not playing in a double game week in 37. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Polish Prince does when it comes to transfers in the coming weeks. Well, he can tell us what he was thinking about doing in transfers in the coming week. I was just about to move off of your team, but let's talk about it. Um, I said I thought it was a good week. All in all, obviously, Saka Palmer. I like the Muniz pick up top, and Guardiola obviously hits. You take a real bath with Eze and Foden not playing. You didn't want to play Darwin and Virgil, obviously for good reason. They got you 1 point each.
Yep.
Um, and you had to sub them in. You have your bench boost. Is that correct?
No, I used the bench boost 2 weeks ago. So all I have left is my triple captain, which
You have your triple captain.
Yes.
That's okay. And that's what you're going to use next week in 37.
Yes, most likely on Mr. Cole Palmer. So that's going to be the plan there. So yeah, I kind of wish I still had a bench boost, but I don't know. I don't know if I wouldn't have used it this week. So I would have had to use a triple captain on probably Mo last week, and that would have been disastrous. So I would have rather not gone through that hell. So as far as looking forward to this week, it pains me to say that I'm probably going to pick up another Arsenal asset, because whether it's Gabriel Jesus, or I might just go to Isak off Darwin. I feel like I don't like any of the Liverpool guys anymore, unfortunately. That's just where we're at. We just can't trust them. They're not going to get the points that you want them to get. So between Mo, Darwin, and Virgil, I have 2 free transfers, so I'm probably going to use both of them. If I move Darwin to Isak, I could easily take Mo down. Maybe De Bruyne if I wanted to, or maybe I go down to Son. I know it's not a great look right now because Spurs have been pretty bad the last 2 weeks, but that's kind of where my head is at right now. All I know is that Cole Palmer is the best player in the game.
I always say that Son makes sense to have in the last week of the year because for some reason he scores 5 goals every year in the last day of the season.
For the Golden Boot.
He really likes it, and I don't blame him. I like having him in my team when that happens. Obviously, he didn't help this week in the double game week. I think that you should seriously consider I would definitely sell Darwin, and I think I would sell Salah as well. I think as much as Son would be nice to have, I think if you can bring De Bruyne in, City's playing for the title. They have to win every game to win the title. I think De Bruyne is going to play every minute that's available to him, especially with no Champions League midweek.
Right.
And they have the double game week in 37. And I think you'd have to give a serious consideration to triple captaining De Bruyne, to be honest, over Palmer in that 37. Because I think they'll have more to play for. And I'd be worried that Pochettino might actually sit Cole Palmer in one of the 2 games, or even sub him off, or some weird thing might happen where he lets, Thiago Silva take a penalty or something stupid.
Yeah.
And he's at a great season, and I understand they do have good fixtures. I think most folks would say he's the best. I think De Bruyne is a consideration for triple captain. I think Foden's a consideration, to be honest, for triple captain. And I think you could even talk yourself if you could find the right defender. I mean, if I had triple captained Jordan Pickford 2 weeks ago instead of doing my bench boost, I mean, he got me 18 points. Do you realize that I picked up 50-something points or 60-something points in 3 weeks in a row, getting double Everton defense, 3 clean sheets, and all bonus points, plus a goal with Brathwaite?
That's just gross. You should feel gross.
No, you should feel gross having 3 Liverpool assets in your side.
I do. Trust me, I do. And, I did bring up Brathwaite's name many, many weeks ago. I just am too stupid to listen to myself.
And don't get me wrong. I think when we look at mine, I think I have 3 as well. I had. Yeah, let's go. Let's go take a look. It makes it even more entertaining.
With the shout of City playing for something, I do think Chelsea, they do, people will laugh that they have some because of the Conference League, but I think that's a big deal. that they'll be in at least some sort of European competition. So I do think they're going to have something to play for. So I don't imagine Pochettino resting guys when they're going to try to get a European spot.
But I don't know if by then they'll have a chance, because if they don't get results, or if results go against them by next week, they could fall farther enough back.
They're only 3 points behind United, right? I mean, then United's in that 6th spot. So,
right, but United also has the extra game as well. I think, I still think it's a long way out for Chelsea, and you're right. I'm just really needling you. I don't know, though. Cole Palmer does look like he is slowly slowing down, though. Like, he does, to me, look like he's kind of, ever since that FA Cup semifinal against City where he really struggled and he had a tough match, I thought, he's just looked a little sluggish, which is totally understandable for a guy who's never played this much football in his professional career. And made a huge move, and is carrying the burden of a terrible club that's in a bad, or not even a terrible club, a big club in a terrible spot due to bad decisions, and he has to play with those bad decisions. So I think that's important as well. I mean, we're talking about Son having a bad double game week, and he outscored Cole Palmer on the double game. So I think we have to look at what we have there, and I think at any one moment, I have more faith in City trying to score 5 than Chelsea getting 3.
Sure.
And I think that's where I might look at De Bruyne or even Foden. Or who knows, maybe you could go with your new star player, Gvardiol. Imagine that. You go with triple captain Gvardiol and he gets you a 20. That's how you make moves in this game, my friend. My side last week, not as well as the weeks prior. Pickford and Branthwaite, like I talked about, brought in the scores. Pedro Porro and Virgil, not so much. Eze and Gusto on the bench with nothing. Smart, obviously, on my part, not playing Raya or Gabriel. Happy with that. Not so smart. Sarabia sitting on the bench again. Salah sitting on the bench. And, of course, Solanke, Mateta, and Holland just about blanking, other than coming on for a late goal. It was miserable for me because everything I did made no sense. I made the moves around the double game weeks. I made the moves around bringing in players and long-term kind of planning. I took out Robertson for Pedro Porro. That worked. No, it didn't. I didn't get rid of Salah for De Bruyne. Instead, I got rid of, it just, everything I was going to do just absolutely backfired. I took a big tumble. I'm still inside the top 80,000. Probably won't be able to get back inside the top 50,000 with no more chips left unless I really hit things well. And I'm not sure my team's going to allow me to break from the template enough to make that kind of gain at this point. So if you were me, what would you do this week? I have 1 free transfer. Potentially I'd make 2 if I was really trying to get my team in double mode for 37, right?
Yeah, I think you pick up a City asset somewhere. Whether it's Verge coming down to a defender, Gvardiol I hear is a good pick, or taking Mo down to De Bruyne or Foden, like you were telling me. I think either one of those moves would be fine. The Pedro Porro off Robertson and the Son off Saka. It made sense at the time because you're playing what you're playing up against. Hindsight is always going to be 2020, right? Obviously, it would have been nice to keep them, but at the same time, it also helped set you up for the next couple of weeks because you're better off without Robertson and maybe not so much without Saka. Maybe you could have done Salah down to Saka and had kept.
I just felt like
Salah down to Son. I mean,
I just honestly, I believed after the week prior that there was no way Salah wasn't going to start. And I figured I would play Salah in the game against West Ham, take the haul from the angry goal scorer that comes out and bangs in goals. And then I get that crap. And and have to watch that whole thing and then watch the whole fallout since. I do feel like Isak is almost essential at this point, especially with the double next week. There's another guy that if you brought him into your side, he might be worth your triple captain on. And it might give you an actual little bit of a differential if you actually had him in your side. I know you don't want to jump on the wagon now, but I'm not sure that when he's fit, he's a top 3 or 4 striker in the entire Premier League. So
yeah.
I don't know that anyone would be that surprised. I think what's going to be funny is at the end of the season, there's a chance Newcastle could get into 5th, right? Or they still locked into 6th. They can't get as high as 5th, right?
No, they could. They could. They're 7 points behind Spurs, so technically they could.
I mean, it'd be very, very tight, and Spurs are tumbling quickly. But I could see Newcastle having this late season surge, getting all the way up to 5th, and just being so irritated with all of the English teams for blowing all their opportunities to get the 5th Champions League spot guaranteed, and being like, we're not in the Champions League, because you guys couldn't win enough games in Europe. And I think today it was clinched that the Germans will get the extra team next year in the Champions League, which is hilarious because by then they'll be back to only 2 good teams in Germany, and we'll have 5 of them in the Champions League. But it's okay because there's going to be 844 teams across Europe playing in the Champions League. But we'll get there next season. I think what I'll end up doing is I'll have to decide whether it's Solanke to Isak this week, or if it is Salah to De Bruyne and another move. I think you're right. I think there's a double move happening here. I got to be honest, at this point, I'm pretty comfortable playing the Everton assets.
They're playing, Luton tomorrow. I mean, there's every possibility they get another clean sheet.
I just don't know why I would go off them. I'm torn between Raya and Pickford, to be honest, because I like Arsenal's fixture as well, obviously. Maybe I'll go 1-1. I'll play Pickford and Gabriel and sit Raya and Braithwaite. But then again, I almost want to roll with that double Everton. I just feel like if something like that's working for you, and I just sit Virgil against Spurs. Now, if I don't sell him, because the odds are he's going to score a goal if I sit him on the bench. And if I play him, they're going to concede 2 and he's going to get a yellow, and I'm going to have a goose egg sitting in the screen.
I see you've got better odds just transferring Virgil out to a different defender and playing that guy, to be honest, whoever it is.
Yeah, you might be right. Who does Palace have? I'm sorry, I can't remember, and I don't have my phone in front of me.
Palace is going to be home against United.
We missed a comment here. Matouche, heavy storms here as well, even a few hours away. Yes, they were heavy, so heavy they knocked him off the show. He was out of here for a good amount of time. It was fun doing it solo. No, it wasn't. I don't know how you do this when it is solo. But you guys in your crazy Midwest weather, I do not envy it one bit. You don't want some of the weather we get at times, but I definitely don't want wind that knocks out power, especially when you can call it, literally from a 5-minute window. He was basically the internet's going out, and you lost all power and the internet, which is pretty outstanding.
It's happened so many times. You would think that there's just one big wild joke that the town likes to play. We know we're going to cut the power off at this moment because they're just expecting it at this point. But yeah, it's wild. But made it back. Most importantly, the most important thing is to get back up when you get knocked down, right? And just keep going.
So I apologize. Who do Palace have?
Man United at home.
So right there, obviously, in the old world, right, you'd be like, oh, it's Man United traveling to Palace. I think now with the new manager and the way that Palace is playing and the fact that United has such a makeshift, banged up defensive setup, you think to yourself, Eze as a minimum, and maybe even Mateta are actual assets I'm not that afraid of playing this week. See, that's the thing. I feel good about a guy like Mateta, even though he didn't score last week and he came off of his great run, because he's such a cheap player. If he's sitting on my bench, I don't feel bad having him on my bench.
Yeah.
It's almost like Gusto, too. At this point, I've rode with him so long. He's so cheap. If he's the fodder not playing, why not leave him there? Because in 37, he has a double game week. And if it looks like he's going to play both games, then I slide him in and he has, positive scoring numbers. So I kind of feel like the main guys I'll be focusing around transferring over the next few weeks will be Salah, Sarabia, Solanke, and Virgil. I think those are the four that are automatically going to get moved. And then I think I'll have to make some, overall decisions in 18 or in 38, I'm sorry, in the final match week to see what we're going to do. Any final thoughts for you? You didn't really get to weigh in earlier on all the transfers in and out, but as shocking, I'm sure you are to know, it's 2 Newcastle attacking assets and 3 City assets.
Yeah, it's not surprising at all. I will say, because you're talking about Solanke moving out, the price rises and drops just came out, and Solanke dropped 0.1 in price. So hopefully that doesn't mess up your plans too much, but it did just go through officially. And Ben White went up 0.1. So Ben White is 6.1, which I thought I would never say. But that's crazy.
Well, he is the highest, I believe he is the highest point scoring defender in the game at this point this season. And it's not just because of the 26-point game week and the huge 2 goals, assists, clean sheet match. He has been consistently good all year long. And to be fair to him, as ridiculous as it is to be fair to a guy who dyes his hair blonde and goes to tanning on a religious level, basically, he's been outstanding for Arsenal this season. People will talk about Declan Rice, and they'll talk about Saka, and they'll talk about Odegaard, and they're all worthy things. And then they'll go to the center back pairing and how smart Arteta was to go to Raya. If they win the Premier League, a big, big, big portion of that success goes to Ben White, because he creates so much down the right-hand side with Saka. And the thing everyone knocked him about was could he defend if he was out wide? Not playing in a back 3 like he had at Brighton, where he was kind of protected by the tactics. To me, he's really proven himself as a real defender. And I think that, Southgate's going to have a really, really hard decision when it comes to who's playing on the right-hand side. Now, he might just make make White a center back, because he's got none of those either. Because for some reason they can't really groom that, but it'll be interesting. So we're going to get out of here on this. Please, if you haven't already, go on over to the YouTube page. As Timuchin would say, hit all of the buttons except the one with that thumb down. Subscribe to the page. Check us out on Instagram. Find us on X. You can also find and support us on our Patreon site, where we have memberships for as cheap as $1 a month. We have shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the morning, Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, Thursday at 8, the fantasy show at 9. I take my partner off the screen sometimes. But truly, we appreciate you watching all season. We appreciate the comments. We hope that you enjoy the content. And more importantly, we hope you are enjoying your fantasy team, regardless of where your score lets you land. So hopefully all your transfers hit. And if you take a hit, it's for a prosper. But either way, green arrows up from here, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a great day.
Don't get rained out.